Gentlemen, welcome to our channel. If you, like me, do not support adultery and believes that cheaters should be fully responsible for their actions, then like this video and do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Well, let's get started. In all 25 years of our marriage, my wife has never shown any suspicious actions. We have always been a stable and strong couple. I was shocked when one day I received a message from a woman who claimed that her future husband confessed to her of cheating with an older work colleague. She gave me the name of the woman in question and said she thought I deserved to know the truth. At first, I was wary of this fact and could not bring myself to believe her. But when she continued to tell the details of the situation, my doubts began to dissipate. It didn't matter if she wanted revenge on my wife or sincerely believed that I deserved to know the truth. What mattered was the truth that was gradually being revealed to me. When I put it all together, it became clear that the woman's statements were indeed true. Interested persons provided her with detailed information, the name of the hotel, and even the address of my house where they met. It was hard to accept that my wife had entered into an affair with a man much younger than herself, only 21 years old. I couldn't help thinking that she had deliberately planned this during my planned business trip, which I had arranged for several months. This coincidence seemed too suspicious, and it was hard for me to believe that her betrayal was not intentional. My relationship with my wife became impossible, and I came to the conclusion that divorce was inevitable. I am currently preparing the necessary financial documents and solving other issues. Discussing my situation with a close friend who went through a similar experience, she gave valuable advice to avoid conflicts with her wife, as this can lead to her explosive reaction when she is cornered. Although I do not believe that my wife will show such behavior, but still it is uncertain. It is unpleasant for me to watch her daily actions when she pretends that nothing has happened. She continues to plan our future holidays and discuss trips to her daughters, and I feel deprived of any emotional connection. Our house now resembles a shared space with a neighbor, since I myself no longer have any meaningful feelings for her. I exist like a ghost, doing the usual things. I wake up early, go to the gym, go to work, and so on. I work, come home around 7 in the evening and do my business. I feel that something is wrong with my wife, but I treat her concern indifferently. The most painful moment in this ordeal was that my daughters knew about the betrayal. One of my daughters accidentally saw them kissing in our living room. It seems that my wife managed to calm her down and give an explanation. Unfortunately, my daughter chose not to tell me about this incident, leaving me in the dark about what conversation my wife had with her in order to keep everything a secret. Given the close bond between my daughters, I'm sure she confided in her siblings after learning about this unpleasant event. I considered it my duty to give them a loving and benevolent upbringing. I have devoted countless hours to building my business to provide them with all the necessary capabilities and resources. When making decisions concerning my work, their well-being has always come first. My goal was to give them the opportunity to get a college education without debt and to ensure their success in their future careers. I tried to be present at all important events and be there for them when they needed me. Like any father, we face certain difficulties, but nothing serious. They are my precious daughters, and I have always considered it my duty to be a support and guide for them. The fact that my daughters kept such an important secret from me causes me deep pain. I think they decided to hide the truth out of fear that it would destroy our family, and I can understand their motives for such a decision. But at the same time, a feeling of anger grows in me, which seems to consume me. Whenever I see them asking for advice or asking for help with things like a deposit for an apartment in our WhatsApp group, I have a desire to yell at them and fight back. But deep down I know that it won't solve anything. This will give only a fleeting satisfaction, after which the pain will make itself felt again. Another part of me longs to escape from all this. Close your bank accounts, pack your bags, and break off relations with everyone connected with it. This internal struggle weighs on me. I am torn between the desire to preserve what is left of our family and an irresistible desire to leave it all behind. I began to like the idea of leaving silently without saying a word, although a close friend warned against it because of the legal consequences. But I am becoming more and more convinced that this option attracts me. I have no desire to engage in conversation or try to understand their point of view. All I want is to escape and disappear to a place like Thailand. I imagine lying on a quiet beach for months so that time heals my wounds. Maybe someday I'll be ready to listen, but I can't guarantee that. I don't want to hear apologies or regrets for not informing me. They had 3 long years to confess, but they chose to look me in the eye and remain silent. I am deeply disappointed that the 4 of them continued to behave as if nothing had happened and behave as usual. It feels like they are skillful manipulators, and my anger only intensifies. If you were in my place, what would you do? Reconciliation with my wife is out of the question. I am repelled by her actions, and her facade of a loving spouse only kindles a fire in me. Fortunately, my friend supports me by sharing her own experience, which allows me to look at the situation from the outside. But I still ask for advice about my daughters. One part of me wants to talk to them, and the other believes that they do not deserve any explanation and recognition. The reality is that it's too late for reconciliation now, and I feel incredibly lost. My lawyer informed me that since our children have already grown up, there will be no problems with alimony. Perhaps my wife will ask for alimony for herself, but given that she works and is financially stable, the judge will most likely reject this request. We have a shared account that we use for joint expenses, but otherwise we each have our own separate bank accounts. This advice was passed on to me from my parents, who believe that if both partners work, it is best to maintain individual financial independence. I am grateful to my parents for the advice to keep separate bank accounts, which turned out to be useful in our situation. I can't help but thank them for these recommendations. According to my lawyer, there is a possibility that my wife may claim a part of my business in the event of its sale, referring to its success. But since it also works, we can present counter-arguments on this score. To be honest, at the moment, I don't care much about the financial aspects. As for the conversation with my daughters, I understand and agree with the advice that my parents gave me. The reason for my indecision so far is the constant anger that continues to engulf me. I'm afraid that if one of them says something that doesn't suit me, I might snap. It's hard for me to get rid of the idea that my wife manipulated them to keep her infidelity a secret. I understand that by allowing myself to break down in anger, I will only aggravate the situation. Obviously, my anger is somewhat inappropriate since it has turned from hatred for my wife into indifference. I understand that I will get a divorce, and eventually she will leave my life. But when it comes to my children, it's a completely different story. I can't bring myself to hate them. I still have deep feelings for them. Unfortunately, at the moment, anger prevails over these emotions. As for telling the other 2 daughters about the betrayal, it seems likely to me that the younger one would have trusted her brothers and sisters. Their close bond and history of supporting each other makes me believe that my youngest shared the truth. But as someone rightly pointed out, I can't be completely sure about this assumption. I want to make it clear that I don't want to blame my daughters for their actions or decisions. I can understand their point of view if they decided to keep the affair a secret to protect our family. But it's hard for me to accept the lies and betrayal that have taken place. It seems that they sided with the mother in her infidelity. Now I need to be alone to make sense of everything that happened. Unfortunately, it has not been easy to find time for loneliness lately. If you take into account the relationship with my wife, taking care of 3 daughters, and running a business, then the only semblance of personal time for me are the moments that I allow myself in the gym. But I don't feel like it's enough to really mitigate the anger I'm feeling. Also, given my current situation, it would be awkward to inform them that I need to leave for a long time, for example, for a month. I understand how important it is to prioritize health checks, including paternity tests and examinations for sexually transmitted diseases. Of course, do not forget about the need for the necessary tests. To do this, I have already made an appointment at one of the clinics. When it comes to paternity tests, I begin to doubt their significance. Even in the worst case, if they are not my biological relatives, does it really matter? I have spent 20 years raising them, and they are my daughters in every sense. Blood kinship is not the determining factor of our connection. If they are not biologically mine, then it is the mother's responsibility, not theirs. I can't hold them responsible for something that doesn't depend on them. It is also possible that the woman who informed me about the betrayal lied. Initially, this was my first thought. and I continue to consider it. We have always been perceived as a strong couple, and at first my reaction to the words of a woman who approached me about my wife's alleged infidelity was skeptical and disbelief. But when she began to tell me more and more details and evidence, doubts began to creep into my soul. Although I am not particularly concerned about the motives that prompted her to disclose this information, more and more new evidence did not allow her to ignore it. Unable to live in denial, I started my own investigation. When you know what you're looking for, it becomes easier to find clues and build the truth. No matter how painful it may be, I firmly believe that you need to face the facts. And the facts pointed to an unpleasant reality. My wife was really unfaithful. It seems that the man with whom my wife had an affair felt it necessary to confess his actions, although I do not know either his motives or what was on his mind. This revelation made me break off relations with all the participants and start the process of moving forward. But I would like to clarify that my previous statements about leaving did not mean a final decision. When I talked about leaving, I meant that I needed some time to heal and sort things out on my own. After I'm cured, I really intend to talk openly and honestly with my children. But I understand perfectly well that everything will never be the same again. Despite my anger, I feel a deep sense of love and responsibility towards my family, and I can't just walk away from her without trying to find a solution. The idea that I can leave my wife alone simply destroys me, because it will undoubtedly have a strong influence on her. Moreover, my other two daughters may take offense at her for the consequences of such a decision. This is my worst nightmare, and it's probably stupid of me to consider it in the first place. It is my duty as a father to protect them, and I will do my best to fulfill this role. I will consult with my lawyer to speed up the paperwork and ensure that they are delivered to my wife in a timely manner. I hope that by next week, all the necessary documents will be prepared, and I will be able to start a conversation with my daughters. It is not yet known how this conversation will develop. Perhaps my own experience will be useful for others, although I sincerely hope that no one will find themselves in a similar situation and will not seek advice. As an addition, I decided to invite my youngest daughter to lunch last week. During lunch, I cautiously asked her if there was anything she wanted to share with me. It seems that my facial expression or tone conveyed my intention, as she immediately understood what topic I was hinting at. Overwhelmed with emotion, she broke down and told me the whole story. It turns out that a few years ago, she witnessed her mother kissing another man in our house. Surprisingly, my wife asked the man to leave and then sat down with our daughter to discuss the situation. My wife admitted that it was a momentary blunder, but expressed gratitude that our daughter intervened and put an end to this situation. She swore it was a one-time mistake and begged her daughter not to tell me anything, fearing that I would just leave her and our family. The daughter said that she agreed to keep everything a secret because she believed her mother's explanations. Later, she told her sister about the incident. As you can imagine, both my daughters were shocked by this revelation. In particular, the elder was skeptical about the claim that this was an isolated case. She found it too convenient that my youngest accidentally walked into the living room and witnessed how they kissed for the first time. I'm very proud of my eldest daughter for taking on the burden of confronting her mother in treason. According to the younger daughter, it seems that the older one talked to her mother about her infidelity and made it clear that if she did not confess to me, then they would take matters into their own hands. But over the past few years, the mother has constantly found reasons to delay revealing the truth, whether it's a situation at work, a sick relative, or other circumstances. There was always an excuse, because she thought it would be too hard to add this revelation to what I had already experienced. By the end of our lunch, I informed my youngest daughter that I would contact her mother to discuss everything and find a way out. It was a difficult moment, but I knew that it was necessary in order to move forward and find a solution. She insisted on participating in the conversation, and I respected her wish. I immediately sent a message to the other two daughters, saying that we needed to talk urgently. I felt that they might already guess what it was about. We quickly agreed to call, and it became obvious that they were aware of what their sister had told them. During our conversation, both my daughters began to cry, apologizing and regretting that they had not told the truth earlier. I assured them that I did not hold a grudge against them. and stressed that I was sorry that they had carried this burden for so long. I tried to make them understand that my love for them will never weaken. As for their mother, I shared with them that I decided to leave because I don't see a future together. It was a very difficult and emotional moment for all of us, but I thought it was a necessary measure to move on and find my own way. After talking to my daughters, I realized that it would be incredibly difficult to stay with the person who betrayed me, but I promised myself that before making final decisions, I would discuss them with my wife. It was the least I could do, given the circumstances. I asked my daughters not to tell their mother about anything, as I was going to discuss the situation with her later in the evening. When the working day came to an end, I returned home and found my wife there, who, as usual, was talking about her day. Taking a deep breath, I informed her that I had an interesting conversation with our daughter. It was obvious from her reaction that she immediately understood what I was talking about. Overwhelmed with emotion, she began to sob and explain that it was just a kiss. She admitted that, knowing how much I value trust, she was afraid of losing me because of something seemingly insignificant. To be honest, seeing her tears, I expected that I would feel an emotional reaction myself, but nothing happened. I informed her that the divorce papers would be delivered to her by courier the next day, which meant our decision to move on separately. After that, I retired to our bedroom, packed my things, and left. I didn't have a clear goal, but I just couldn't stay in our house anymore. I decided to book a hotel room in the city center. Realizing that my youngest daughter wants to avoid returning home and meeting her mother, I called her and informed her that I would not stay at home that evening. In response, she expressed a desire to stay with a friend, but asked if she could stay with me given my absence from home. Without hesitation, I agreed to her request and notified my other two daughters of this decision. I warned my other two daughters that my sister and I would stay at the hotel for the night. They expressed a desire to have a conversation without outsiders, and I agreed to their request. During our conversation, I told them about the next steps, based on the recommendations of my lawyer. I stressed once again that they are my daughters and that I love them wholeheartedly. Contrary, perhaps, to all the advice, I could not help but express my resentment that they were hiding this secret from me. I reminded them that, in my opinion, we have a strong bond and that we are always ready to discuss anything. This revelation caused them to burst into tears and apologize. I quickly assured them that, despite what had happened, they were my daughters and that my love for them was unshakable. I made it clear to my daughters that it would take me some time to get back to my usual behavior. In the course of our conversation, I mentioned the possibility of going on a long journey to find clarity and peace of mind. To my surprise, the eldest daughter admitted that if I feel the need for such a trip, that I should organize it. After our conversation, we went to bed. The next morning, when my daughter and I were having breakfast, my wife called me. At first, I didn't dare to answer, but my daughter insisted that I talk to her. Reluctantly, I agreed, but decided to turn on the speakerphone. As soon as I picked up the phone, it became clear that she had probably been drinking all night. She started crying, telling me she loved me and insisting that we were destined to be together. During our conversation, I emphasized that our children are already adults and can build their own lives. We gave them the best upbringing we could, and now they have to build their own future. Unexpectedly, her behavior quickly turned vicious. She started threatening, saying that she would take everything that belongs to me, ruin my company, and even falsely accuse me of physical assault. It was a shocking moment that left me and my daughter speechless. In light of this abrupt change of tone, I decided it was better to abruptly end the conversation. I told her that my lawyer would contact her, and I didn't know what to do or what to say at that moment. It was a heartbreaking sight. A man with whom I had lived for 2 decades suddenly turned into a completely different person. Literally 5 minutes later, my daughter received a message from her mother that they needed to talk. Realizing that my daughter was afraid, I advised her not to answer. It was obvious that her mother was in a state of alcoholic intoxication, which means that any conversation at this moment would most likely not bring positive results. I told my daughter that I would stay at the hotel until everything was settled, and she could join me if she wanted. Then we had another group phone conversation with my other 2 daughters, telling them the details of what happened. As expected, They were completely overwhelmed by the situation. I immediately met with my lawyer to discuss what was happening. He reassured me and assured me that from a legal point of view, I have nothing to worry about. Given the stable professional position and financial stability of the mother, the judge is unlikely to want to put them in danger by making any unfavorable decisions. Although she may be entitled to half of our common property, such as houses and cars, it is important to note that my savings and share in the company should not be affected. Financially, she should not claim either my personal savings or assets related to my business. My daughter expressed fears about returning to our house and the fear that she would be blamed for the current situation. In response, I promised her that I would find a place in the city center where she could stay with me, providing her with comfort and tranquility. My daughter is understandably hesitant to return home, at least until she goes to college. It is obvious that the unstable behavior of the mother during the telephone conversation deeply disturbed her. I will let her know that if she feels the need, I can help her find someone to talk to, for example, a counselor or a psychotherapist, so that he will support her and give recommendations. Ultimately, it will be her choice, and I want to prioritize her well-being. After receiving the divorce papers, my wife reportedly reacted violently, involving our families in this ordeal. Her family tried to contact us, but my eldest daughter resolutely stopped all attempts to communicate. As for me, my brother understands me and supports me. He knows that without good reasons, I would not have decided on such a serious step. That's what we've come to know, that the divorce process has officially begun. At this point, my daughter will be able to stay with me until she feels comfortable enough to come home whenever that happens. Despite the messages from her mother, my lawyer strongly recommends not to meet with her. He claims that in such a situation, nothing can be won and everything can be lost, so I will listen to his advice. As for my own plans, I decided not to go to Thailand until I am sure that everything is fine with my youngest daughter. If I decide to go, it will most likely be next year, after she graduates from high school. It is unclear how our daily life will develop, but we will overcome it together. These are the latest news. I want to thank everyone who left comments on my previous posts. Your support is very important. Despite the pain caused by infidelity, I believe that going through this whole process has made me better and stronger than I was before. It was an incredibly difficult path, but I found inner resilience and growth in spite of the pain. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Put likes and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.